Dr. B and Mrs. B, empty nester lifestyle. Ba-da-da-dee-da-dee-da-dee-da, la 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 la.
We are back. That's right. We are back to the Dr. B and Mrs. B Empty Nester podcast show. And this is show number 26, Mrs. B.
Yes, I'm Mrs. B, and this is show number 26, and we're happy to be back. How are you, audience?
It's been a great ride with all of our podcast shows. And we just want to give a shout out to our podcast platform, Podbean. Thank you, Podbean, for setting up with some great platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Boomplay, uh, also Podchaser, and all the podcast platforms out there. And just by the way, check out our new logo. We got our new logo on our podcast platform, and we also are featuring our podcast on our new website, Dr. B and Mrs. B, Emptynester'S.com.
Yes, our new website. Thank you, all the podcast platforms, for loading up all our information, our podcasts, and having our listeners listen to us talk about Dr. B and Mrs. B Empty Nester Lifestyle. We really thank you.
And what we're going to do today and for this week, like I said in show number 25, we took a turn and we started taking a deeper dive into some of the major topics that are trending globally. And one of the topics that relates to Dr. B and Mrs. B Empty Nesters is parenting. Parenting. What do you think about that, Mrs. B?
Parenting is a topic that you can find a plethora of information on, but not the type of information that Dr. B and Mrs. B has as lived experience, and particularly our specific path of lived experience. So in our case, we had good feedback, positive comments, and some information sent to us that, you know what, you guys are pretty good. You, Dr. B and Mrs. B, Empty Nesters Lifestyle, with all the experience you have raising adult children and successfully, why don't you create a topic on parenting
we
and
got
guidance?
We got that. But here's what the topic is tonight, Mrs. B. We got plenty of parenting topics. We'll ask the audience about particular. We got tons of parenting topics. The topic tonight, Mrs. B, the overall topic is parenting, but now we're going to dig deep into one of the specific parenting topics, which is FAFO parenting. Now, let me read very quickly an overview of FAFO parenting, and then you and I will share our individual and then collective perspective of FAFO parenting. Here we go. FAFO parenting, which stands for F, bad word, F, around. I said fool around, but it's actually a bad word, the first one. F, around, and find out, is a parenting approach where children experience the natural consequences of their actions instead of having parents constantly intervene. It's not about neglecting a child's needs, but rather allowing them to learn from their choices within safe boundaries. According to this approach, is gaining traction across the globe. The essence of this ideal, the core ideal of FAFO parenting emphasizes natural consequences. If a child refuses to wear a coat on a cold day, they may experience being cold rather than being forced to wear the coat. According to FAFO parenting, it's not about being neglectful or putting children in danger. It's about allowing your child to learn from the outcomes of their choices, as long as those choices don't involve serious safety risk. That's a little bit of the background information on FAO, and then let me just give a little bit more information. The emotional aspect. FAFO parenting requires parents to be emotionally present and supportive, even when a child is facing the consequences of their actions. And then it differs from helicopter parenting, where parents try to prevent every mishap, and from over permissive parenting. Final examples of FAFO parenting: a child refusing to eat dinner and then feeling hungry later, or a child choosing not to study for a test and potentially getting a bad grade, or a child not wearing a jacket, like I said before, and experiencing uh, being cold. They say the benefits of FAFO parenting, Mrs. B, can help children develop problem solving skills, resilience, and a sense of responsibility. With that said, Mrs. B, what do you think about FAFO parenting today in 2025? And would you practice this parenting with our not grown kids, but when our kids were young? What do you think, Miss B?
Absolutely not.
Whoa, that was fast, everybody. Absolutely not.
Dr. B, when you first told me about this topic, I said, "Are you serious? Is this really a child model action step towards youth development and child development growth?" And he said, "Yes, let me read it to you." And I thought, okay, I hope this is not a trend. He says, "Yes, this is a trend, Mrs. B." So I would say, no, I would not practice this type of child parenting. I would not practice that type of FAFO parenting, letting the child do whatever without some type of understanding, without some type of conversation, discipline in the most mildest and proper forms in terms of gentle understanding, caring, meaning discipline, meaning have a conversation, sit down, maybe time out. Sit
Oh,
in a
that
chair.
timeout won't help. They say the timeout doesn't help. They just say that the
Listen,
kid has to experience it. The
yeah.
timeout
Well,
did not work.
I'm getting to that, and let me
Oh, okay.
let me shorten it. I don't believe in a discipline where a child gets out of hand and deals with the consequences that might cause the child to fall between the gaps and become emotionally hurt by the consequences. I think you have a safety net for that child as they grow up. I've never been a helicopter parent. Neither has Dr. B.
Oh,
And I
wait a
think,
minute. Wait,
hold
speak
on.
for
Let me
yourself.
get let me
Wait,
get
wait.
there. Let me
This is
get
your
there.
perspective, Miss B.
Yeah,
Hold on.
but let me speak for myself. I've never been a
She included me in her conversation. This
Dr.
is
B.
Mrs. B's
Let me answer the
perspective.
question.
Okay.
There you go. So, discipline meaning, guidance, guiding your child through life consequences means you don't let them go out in the cold, because then that's irresponsible of the parent not to shelter the child with a coat or something like that, for example. I also think that if the child has a consequence of a test not getting done, what's the parent's responsibility? Well, if they don't study, then they'll deal with the consequences of failing the next day. Well, the parent's responsibility is to sit down with the child and show the child and talk to the child about the responsibility. No, I just don't believe that FAFO is a way to educate your child, to parent or guide a child. Definitely no violence, definitely no pushing or aggression or bullying or anything like that. I know our parenting has been straight to the point, letting our kids know we care, we love them, but there are consequences. And we're going to walk you through the consequences, but nothing that dire. I think that's gone too far, FAFO. And just pulling back and understanding what your child, what's the reason why the child is resisting, and what are the reasons. And so the next step would be, if the child doesn't want to do this, realize this would be the consequence. And then the child goes to school the next day and they don't do what they're told, and they come back home, what did you learn? But if it's a situation where you can help the child, and there's homework and there's mentoring and there's tutoring, then do so, because that is the part of the parents' responsibility, and guiding the child. And I
Wait,
know
wait a
some
minute,
parents
wait a minute. We have
don't
some.
agree, but
I'll let you go. I'll let you go.
let me go. Let me go on about it just for a moment. And it's about just knowing a lot of parenting skills are important. Learning about them, reading about it, talking with other parents groups, sitting down with each other and learning about parenting is a skill in itself. Sitting down with other adults, mothers groups, fathers groups, all those types of things matter, because the parent's in charge, but you don't want to make the child in charge of themselves and consequences too early, because their development and growth has not reached that stage yet.
Okay.
And at the same time, the parent has to be in charge of making those decisions rather than being led by the child. There is a particular leadership here in parent leadership skills. And then also having the child, and pulling back and having the child make those decisions. Open-ended questions. Well, what are you going to do about it? What will happen next if you don't do the action that was requested of you, whether it's the parent or the teacher, whether mother or father or teacher? What are you going to do next? Well, I don't know. Whether if it's a family situation that has guardians, uh, what will happen if you don't follow directions? What will happen? What is the consequences? Will they be positive? Will they be negative? What would you do to solve that problem? But the parent problem solves with the child for the child, and the end result is the child. In serious situations for the child, the end result would be the child making a decision based on a discernment, based on conscious, based on a moral discernment, but also based on ethics, good deeds, caring, compassion, empathy. And all those things go into that quick conversation, those small decisions that enter into and build on several decisions that are more complex than the previous conversation and previous decisions
Okay.
and
Okay.
action steps.
Get to your point. Okay. This
All
is
right.
rapid. Well, thank you, Mrs. B.
You're welcome.
But here's another side to it. What happens when you have a headstrong kid that always challenges the parents' input, and again and you notice that it's a part of his or her personality? It's just headstrong, just always going to challenge the parents' oversight, and at times you may want to just let your child experience the consequences of their actions. And such as, okay, you don't want to study for a test, you don't want to put in the extra time, you're going to pay the consequences of it. And dare I say, that had happened with one of our kids, where, okay, we tried to emphasize you may want to put a little bit more study into that, but no, it didn't happen. And the kid came back with a not so shining grade, and they realized, wow, I should have listened to my parents, but he or she was a little bit more headstrong and became disappointed, and learned, and this is what they're saying, they learned a little bit more of a sense of individual responsibility,
Exactly.
as
Individual.
opposed
Yeah.
to the parent always adhering to what the parents say.
Luckily, learned the consequences, but it wasn't dire and turned out fine and went on. Everyone goes through that. Every child goes through that. And it's not just monolithic to one particular family, it's several types of families and all over the world.
We're not
And
saying, I know, but we're just applying
so,
it for ourselves. I'm not
yes,
worried, and right now we're
exactly.
not thinking about all the families
Well,
around the world. We're just
again,
applying a practical sense and
practicality,
seeing,
the same answer.
okay, maybe they do have some, okay, natural consequences of the child, letting them to experience
Hmm.
life a bit more and pull back a little bit because, again, kids have different personalities. They're just not going to fall in line and hear
Yeah.
and follow exactly the nurturing and suggestions by both parents. They're going to test each parent out along the way as well.
Well,
That
yeah.
happens.
That's
And so,
teenage. That's
uh,
going through youth and
and
teenage years,
and the
and
realities in different
that's
school
growth.
systems, we had to pull back a little bit on one kid versus another. And
Mhm.
then what happened, and I'm just
We're
going to
very
say this,
fortunate.
Mrs. B, uh, we have great kids, then they tended to follow the leader of our kids, and the eldest got great grades, and they wanted to follow and adhere to the pattern of the eldest. So we didn't have to do much suggestions along the way with encouragement, but we had each kid follow the previous kid pattern with regards to getting great grades, achieving a certain standard, uh, adhering to various rules of the school.
I would say there's two parts to that. Each, when the first child came, we had a certain pattern of parenting, but it had to adapt and we had to change. So the second part of uh, that rules and guidelines and parenting in particular, that Dr. B mentions, is that as each child came, we had to change and adapt to that individual child, of that individual child's talents, creativity, gifts, and growth. And so the pattern of not maybe, but the first child had a particular pattern of how how academically inclined the child is, but at the same time, the next child followed a particular pattern that changed with the flow of that individual behavior of that child, individual talents. And then the third child changed, again, adapting to the child's individual personality.
Well,
But yes,
definitely, we
was it a
adjusted.
template that we followed that worked for us as parents? Certainly. But at the same time, each child began to jockey for their own and began to take their path for their own individuality, their own strengths.
No
And
doubt about it.
and
No doubt
and
about it.
and so they had their particular way and path of doing things and doing the ways of their particular beliefs, their gifts, their talents, their creativity.
So, in the end,
So it's two
do
parts to
you
that.
agree with the FAFO parenting?
I still do not. I think it has some. I think the consequences of that are should be only be minor, or you know, yeah, minor to moderate. Saying okay, certain things such as homework or things like that, and background that we have in education and educators. Um, I would say, and scholars, I would say, in those particular cases, I wouldn't call it that. I wouldn't call it FAFO because there's actually a whole child development, K through 12,
It
as
is
well
what it is, Mrs. B.
as
That's the
parenting growth
lingo.
in the home of, yeah, that's trend though, as parenting growth in the home. And there's a whole section on studies, research, as well as parenting input foremost and foremost
So, Mrs.
above
B,
all research and
Miss
education of the
so
parenting their
Mrs.
child.
B says no. Dr. B
Yeah,
says no as well.
yeah,
Says
no,
that simple. Well,
yeah.
thank you, everyone. We are running a little bit long. That's what happens when we dig deep into parenting and FAFO parenting. We provided our perspective, we provided our input. You make the decision on how you will parent. So, this is Dr. B and Mrs. B. Last word I'm going to say is peace out, everyone.
And everyone, peace in.
Dr. B and Mrs. B, empty nester lifestyle.
Ba-da-da-dee-da-dee-da-dee-da. La 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 la.